My name is Chandra, and I work at the museum, and I really would like to welcome you to the Brown Bag Lecture today. We are graced with Wayne McDougall, who is probably a very familiar face since he works for Shaw Community Television. And we had a conversation, and Wayne said, would you like to have a presentation about the history of Penticton through the eyes of a video camera? And I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it.
Thank you very much. We have a captive audience, a 1-hour show, and if it goes into overtime, we're selling tickets to exit. Pay as they exit, kind of a program. So my name is Wayne McDougall, and I'm a program producer for community television, Shaw TV, but 40 years this year. And what we're doing today is I went back and I thought, let's find some of the videos that were from long ago and some of the images and whatnot. And there's very little. There's very little videos remaining that are playable. So we did scrounge up some of them. So a lot of it is some of the events we've been to, the volunteers that help produce the shows, and the behind-the-scenes story that sometimes. Has anyone here watched television at all? Anyone? A few people? But what does it take to make a television show? And so that's some of the story, all the different people and equipment and wires and where does it go and how does that happen? And so a little bit of those are the stories. So we could have the lights, please. So our first image, we have a young man who in the early days was interested in being on television, being involved in producing television. That was me back, I don't know, 1980, I think. All right, so we have a trivia question to start off with about Penticton and the early days. We have television shows on Shaw Cable 11, Shaw TV. It's also known as Cable 11 in the early days. So question, what is the longest running television series on Cable 11 with over 1,000 episodes? Any guesses? The News? Nope. Ghost Towns? Nope. It is, in fact, Penticton City Council. Still running today, popular as ever. And you can tell because of the Pinto wagons that are parked out front of City Hall here. So what happened in the early beginnings? How did Channel 11 start? Just a little bit of a background, just a little bit before my day, is the CRTC, that's the Canadian Radio Television Telecommunications Commission, said thou shalt have a local television channel. And so the program director for the Shaw Cable of the day went to say they had to do a couple hours of programming and said, a couple hours a week? Well, let's see. City Council's right there. Why don't we see if we can put City Council on TV? So Penticton City Council was actually one of the very first shows ever put on. And the City Council meetings that are recorded and broadcast out of Penticton were among the first in Canada. The necessity of cable television was due to the mountains, so there weren't a lot of broadcast channels available to be seen. So cable television was very strong then. So what happened after that, the Cable 11 asked City Council if we could put some shows on the air. They agreed to one a week, or one a month, just to try it out. And one of the very first broadcasts, this will be, I think, 1978. I think Craig Henderson is in the room. Are you there, Craig? So the high school in Penn High hosted Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. So the other Trudeau came to Penticton, and there was a broadcast. And what's significant about this broadcast was it, from the early days, black and white cameras, all volunteer produced, big setup. So for Penticton, this was actually a pretty big deal to not only have the Prime Minister come, but also have him being able to be recorded and broadcast live on TV. And so we see a little clip of this, and you'll notice, you may recognize Craig Henderson, who is the class president of the day of the school. It's one of the students, and the question that the student asks is about the Canada Pension Plan.
It is on behalf of the students and staff of Penticton Secondary School, it gives us great pride to introduce the Right Honourable Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada.
to ask you a question dealing with the Canada Pension Plan. We have heard rumors that by 1980, the Canada Pension Plan will not have sufficient funds for all the old age pensioners at that time, and also that people of our generation will never collect from the Canada Pension Plan. I'd like to know how much truth there are in the rumors.
Well, there's no truth to those rumors, so you can grow old with great expectations, but I hope you don't do it too quickly. The problem of pensions in a country like Canada, of course, is that we have to make sure that those of working age continue to be numerous enough to support those who have retired.
On behalf of the students of Penn High, I'd like to have Mr. Trudeau accept a monument of a United School and United Canada. The students have worked together to build a large banner of national unity, and to you, Mr. Trudeau, we give the maple leaf.
And after watching politics, you sometimes need a laugh. So there's one of our puppies. Back in the day, Penticton City Council, we like to talk about this a lot because it's one of the things we do. And it met weekly, then it was bi-weekly, and then it was the first and third Monday of the month. And we did also broadcasts of Summerland Municipal Council, and they were bi-weekly. And so when Penticton went to every first and third meeting, sometimes there would be a conflict. And we said, Summerland, I'm sorry, but you know, sometimes you meet on the same day as the Penticton Council. Not sure what we can do. And they said, oh, well, we'll change the dates of our meeting. So they changed to the second and fourth Monday of the month to accommodate, so they could be broadcast and share that with the community. So this image was me some 40 years ago, some 40 pounds ago, perhaps. McDougall Park Elementary or Middle School was a junior high where I attended. So this is a student that we were working with a video class in the later days before McDougall closed. But what happened at McDougall Park School is there was a young man named Randy Manuel. You may have heard of him. He came to McDougall Park one day with a video camera and an old, well, in those days it wasn't that old, videotape machine, black and white, big reel-to-reel machine, and did some television programming with us in our class back in 1972, I'm thinking. And since then, I was so interested, was so excited that I thought, you know, one of these days I've got to pursue this because it's just so interesting. And meanwhile, for over the years, we've also trained up a lot of volunteers who've gone on to other careers in broadcasting. And this young man, for his first time doing interviews, picked up the mic away he went, and hopefully he's off to a career. So this represents the second most popular and long-running television program on Channel 11, and yes, it's the Fire Log. So back in the day, we had the Fire Log channel. We called it Fireside Christmas, and it was a 1-hour recording of the fireplace. We had Christmas music in the background, and then when the video would get to the end of the cassette, it would stop and rewind, and the channel would go black for a minute while it rewound, and it would play again. So Fireside Christmas. Did anyone ever watch Fireside Christmas? You'll find that the new high-definition channel version of this is much warmer. So if you get a chance to watch it in HD, it's even more cozy. Another program we did, Santa's Hotline, back in, it'd be the late 70s, I guess, mid to late 70s. We had Santa Claus come into the studio and answer phone calls from some of the kids. This is Gyro Jim Beeson. You wouldn't remember Gyro Jim was the Santa Claus, and he did a regular show with us. Notice the phone number, 25940. You didn't have to dial 492 or the 604, which it used to be in those days. And so that was Santa's Hotline. Very popular. Some of the graphics we use on the channel, in this case, this we call our color camera. We had one color camera, and the rest of them were all black and white. And these days on television, you can see different titles and graphics and things that are all very, very fancy, computer generated. And back in the day, it was an art card, a big light, and a camera pointed at it. So that was how we did graphics. Studio 379 was the name of the show because that was our location, 379 Martin Street. And here's a couple students running cameras, the large black and white cameras, a couple of really big lights. It took a lot of light to generate a picture back in those days. This young man is one of the employees. Was a part-time employee of Shaw Cable when I first started. It's Al Mullins, and Al Mullins is now the president of the BC Interior RV Association. So he's changed his career a little bit. This is a business card that we use. At Friday Night Disco is the show that we're advertising. And the story behind this is when we weren't on the air with a show, and there were very few shows in those days, we had the weather. So you turn on a channel and you see the weather, the time and the temperature at the bottom of the screen. That's generated electronically these days. Well, in those days, we had the weather wheel. So it was a big metal round wheel like this that rotated in front of a camera. And so we had a thermometer, a wind velocity gauge, barometer, and then there were a couple of empty holes. So in the empty holes, we would come up with a little business card-sized promo card that we made to advertising whatever the show was. Friday Night Disco was a show we created that is something like MTV or Much Music, and this is like 1979, so like years before those shows were going, those networks were going, we were doing that. An interesting thing about the weather wheel is when the cable guys would always talk on the VHF radios, and whenever they would key the mic, the wind velocity meter would whoosh, go right up to the top. And so you're watching the channel, and the wind velocity meter would come along, and all of a sudden the needle would go up to, no folks, don't panic, it's not a hurricane, someone's just using the radio. And this is a part of a cue sheet. Midwinter Breakout was a show we would do. Anyone remember Midwinter Breakout? A festival we had, I guess it was, well, in this case, it's 1982. And they say a lot of interesting things are created on the back of a napkin, right? In a restaurant or something. Well, we were, after a production, the volunteers all got together at Boston Pizza. So Jim Treliving's Boston Pizza here in Penticton. And I drew out this, they said, well, we need a new logo. We need something to represent the channel. So I drew this, and this became our Channel 11 logo that we used for several years. So this is Remembrance Day, Penn High Auditorium. One of the things that we are pleased to present is Remembrance Day. And I mean, Remembrance Day is something that's always been done, and I think it should always continue. It's really important to honor the veterans. We do interviews with them and such. And this person on the camera, this is my brother Gary, who's on this camera over here. You usually see one of us behind a camera, so if you recognize us, you can't figure out who we are, well, maybe if we held the camera on our shoulder, you'd recognize who we are right away. So, but note that he's got wires attached to him, he's got a heavy camera, and the battery belt, and I guess that's the time for a little show and tell. So this battery belt, no, we're not into deep sea diving, but in fact, this was the batteries that ran the camera. So back in the day, we didn't really need to have a camera person or a volunteer who had a lot of artistic skill. It was, did they have enough brawn to actually haul the equipment? So we had the Portapack, which was the portable video recorder, is right here. And there's another demonstration coming up with this in a minute. But meanwhile, it's like the battery belt, the camera, the portable recorder. Now people have iPhone, click, click, and there's your video. So how far we've come. This was Steve Dunstan, who was the Summerland commander, became the Canadian commander, is presenting us with honorary membership for our work with presenting Remembrance Day on a regular basis. So this is me, yes, 40 pounds ago. All right, so here's a larger version of that video recorder that we spoke about. And back in the day, there weren't the little audio cassette tapes people remember. Who remembers VHS? Anybody remember VHS? Some of you might be old enough to remember VHS. We have another, lights please, we have another demonstration. So how we would edit with a video when it's tape to tape video. So what we would do is we'd have two of the machines. one next to each other, like this machine that we saw. And the first one would have the source material that we recorded, and the second one would be a blank tape. So what we would do is queue up the source material to the spot we wanted the edit to begin, and we'd queue up the recording to the end of the last scene, so we'd be able to splice the two together. And then we would take the video, and it would be wound around the machine, and we would drop the loop of video down to the floor, like this, just until it touched the floor. And then we'd wind it back up on the take-up reel, and we'd do the same for the other machine. And then we would put them both into pause, and then both into play, and watch it, because you can't just go from start to 0 to 60, right? It's kind of like a run-up lane on the freeway. It's got and then the picture would stabilize. Okay, so you're watching, and then when it gets right to that last moment, you can either hit the edit button or not. And yes, we made it through another edit. So brute force editing, that's what we used to do in those days. So most of our shows were live. They only got edited if they really had to be edited, because it was a lot of work, and the accuracy was not quite there. So that was brute force editing back in the day. And this is a result. If you don't quite get the edits right, the tape might end up on the floor. And so that portable recorder, what we did one day, Walking Tom Powers. Anyone remember Walking Tom? We used to walk around the lake, all these things. So we had that recorder with a camera, and we were following him around. It was this big deal. Locally, he was a local hero. And we had looked to rewind the tape, opened up the machine, and what had happened is that the tape had come off the spindle and dumped a bunch of tape like that in the machine, so there goes the show. Yeah, missed that one. All right, one of the projects I inherited when I first came to Channel 11 was the Kids View show. So that was a project where we had middle school aged boys and girls that would learn TV production. So we would have a studio, we'd have each of the kids running a camera, or the production switcher, or the microphone mixer, or things like that. And one of the shows we did here was School Challenge, which was recorded right here in this room. So this, with this graphic wall here, that used to be a stage, and we'd bring all the equipment in and produce a show that was like Reach for the Top. It was kind of like the Reach for the Top show. This is one of the students from the Kids View program. This is Jeff House, and he's right now he's a programmer for Microsoft in Seattle. And just judging by the kinds of things he talks about, he's very up there, high end, like lots of these, I don't know, computer people talk a different language, but he's in there. So he was one of our Kids View students in the day. Here, the Kids View group is on location at the Peach Bowl, or the Trade and Convention Center, doing a recording. With one boy's holding a light, another one operating a camera, and this young lady is my little sister, so she was one of our volunteers as well. So we tend to use family, friends, and pretty much anyone we could get our hands on who would come and help us out to make some of these shows happen. It was pretty interesting. Here are the kids setting up in this room for the Kids View show. So the bunch of equipment that's over here on the side is there's a video camera, there's some recording equipment, color monitor, some video switching, audio mixing, stuff like this. Take a note at the studio monitor with the wood grain finish and the rotary dial channel changer. And so the kids would get there, we'd set up the backdrop and set up the tables and the microphones. And it would be a huge setup, really, for all these kids. So they were really quite dedicated to do this show. And we would record School Challenge, and there were a dozen schools that would all participate in the challenge in the school district here. So Ken Timms was the man's name here, and he was the director of elementary instruction, and he was the quiz master and came up with all the questions. So has anyone seen the show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? So it's something like that because it was elementary school levels and O'Connell Elementary School. So that's where KVR School is today. Giants Head and Trout Creek were from Summerland. So we had all the schools in the district participating. So it was a really good way that these kids could be involved in a contest that would test their skills. They'd be on television. We had this regular series going. It was a lot of work, but it was really, really good to get so many people involved.
A question on Canada. If you were in the city of the foothills, where would you be? David?
Lethbridge?
No. Carmi? Jeff?
Saskatoon?
No. Calgary? Calgary. Relatively accurate? Yes. The scores are relatively accurate, so therefore O'Connell is the winner of the Kiwanis Sundowners trophy. I don't think that the members of either team, I don't think that O'Connell should feel particularly elated, although I congratulate you. I don't think that Carmi should feel very disappointed at all. You have done extremely well to get through 4 games to get this far, and the answers, I'll bet that half of the adult audience watching didn't know a lot of the answers that you did. Congratulations, you've done just an extremely fine job of answering the questions.
All right, moving on to another regular occurrence, the Square Dance Festival. It's, I think, now currently part of Peach Fest, but Square Dance Jamboree brought thousands of people every year to Penticton to Square Dance. They held their events Wednesdays through, Monday through Saturday. We usually went down and broadcast from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. It was wall-to-wall square dancing. It was really quite popular. So here's a camera on top of the Square Dance stage. You'll notice Miller Knutson. Do you remember Miller Knutson, one of the Herald photographers? He was, when there was something going on, he was there. And thanks in part to the local newspaper, the Herald, and all their things that are in the archive. So if you're going to do some research, we've already seen a few images from the Herald and from the archives, some images. The Penticton Museum and Archives is a great resource. So if you've got photos, images, maybe film, I don't know, artifacts perhaps, don't throw them out. If there's something to do with Penticton history, the archives may want you to share them. This is me, I don't know, 35 years ago, 35 pounds ago. The message here is this is in our cube van, in our box van. We would take equipment from the studio and unwire it, roll it into the truck, and so all this rack would be on wheels, and this other one here would be on wheels, and strap it to the wall with rubber straps, and off we go and drive down to, say, the Square Dance Festival, put a camera on the roof of the truck, another couple of cameras on the ground, and we'd have ourselves a production. With a few volunteers to help make it happen, of course. Here's an image from the square dancing. We got real fancy, got a split screen. That was the big times for us. But yeah, the square dance was really popular. We'd have it on several days a week, and we did that for several years.
To the walk and dodge, elemental up with the old left hand. Here we go, riding left grand, riding left, you know, hand over.
We hope that the following presentation brought to you by Cable 11 here in Penticton and the BC Square Dance Jamboree, the highlights of the 1981 Jamboree will be enjoyed by all of you who attended this year's Jamboree and for those that might be attending in the future. So without further ado, let's have a look at some of the highlights for 1981.
Hinge, make few lines, swing through 2 by 2. Now when you're through, cast off 3/4 round. U lines to the sides, swing through, go 2 by 2. Boys, run around this girl, 8 to the middle and a come on back.
Star through right there, hey, pass through, get a right or left through the outside 2 and turner, square through, say 4. Four-hander around the ring, and then you're facing out. Everybody California twirl check. Lions roar up to the middle and back. Why pass through right there, going to bend the line. Go up to the middle and back. Do a right or left through.
So the square dancing was really popular, and we would make copies of the videos and For a nominal fee, people would take them home. So in a way, we've been helping promote tourism to Penticton for a number of years. It was really fun to do the fun shows like the square dancing. The aqueducts. Anyone square dance in the lake? We have a square dancer we have an aqueduct.
Occasionally from the shores of Okanagan Lake, there's a waterfowl that flock together only during the Square Dance Festival.
Step to the wave, swing through. All the boys run around the girls. Do a Ferris what?
For 45 summers, Square Dance caller Ray Berenzi and his family have made their annual migration here.
Well, we call it the aqueducts, and that's where we get in the water and we attempt to square dance the best we can while waist deep in water. And we add a little bit of flourish, like splashing each other, and the call dive through takes on a whole new meaning when you're dancing in the lake.
It's a lot of fun, yeah. I mean, I'm part of a team group back home, and we dance with the kids there, and it's always nice to come down to Penticton.
Or ladies, Jane.
They come from miles around, migrating from other provinces and states. These are the aqueducts, who wing their way to Penticton every year. These aqueducts offer a rare sighting, drawing a curious crowd of onlookers.
Everybody walk around your corner.
Like other waterfowl, they seek a warmer climate, finding just the right temperatures here in Penticton to perform their soggy square dances.
The people that you meet, they're all exciting. They're active and they want to do stuff together. And that's why in the summertime, we go all over. You know, sometimes in Spokane, Washington for these festivals, Prince George. We're right now, we're right here in, what is this, Penticton?
Beautiful Penticton.
Beautiful Penticton. We love it.
Splash your partner.
So that's the square dance, that's the aqueducts. It's a great thing to watch, and I guess it's even more fun to participate. So yeah, join the aqueducts. Peach Festival, another big event in Penticton that we go out in video, and in this case, this is a young lady that's recording the parade. Again, it's a multiple camera mobile production. Dennis Walker, Nitu Garcha, parade hosts. Another volunteer, this is Ron, and again, it's a great fun for the volunteers as well as the people like to see themselves on TV. Put cameras on top of the roof of our mobile van to get a good vantage point. And here's a couple of the volunteers inside the truck. This is young Keller at the production switcher. So the person sees all the cameras on the wall and they choose which one they want to be on TV. This is the Peach Bin races and the Peach Chef contest. Great events to attend. The next section of the presentation is On the Move. This is, anyone recognize that building? Looks like the Incola, not the Incola. Somerset Inn, yes. And perhaps if you twist his arm, Gary might present a brown bag talk coming up one day about the moving of the Somerset Inn. It was a documentary they shot, took a long time to move this thing. I mean, here's this big hotel on top of Giant's Head Mountain. Why don't we just move it to Penticton? I mean, why not? So there they go, and it was a really big deal. Somerset Inn. This is us on location again. This is at either a career fair or a trade show kind of thing. So we would take lots of opportunities to go out in the community and show the community to itself and be involved. So it was just really great to meet folks. This is the Kiwanis TV auction. There's Gary behind the camera. Usually I'm not on in the picture so much because usually one of us is taking the picture of the other. And this is the Kiwanis TV auction from, I think, the Convention Center. This is our mobile van in the Cherry Lane Shopping Center, doing a mobile production. Looks like a lot of young students on cameras in this one. There's Gary in the production unit. And this mobile unit, these production racks of equipment, it takes so much time and effort to unhook the disc caboobierate in the studio, haul the equipment out to the truck, hook it all back up, do the show, and then pack it all up, go back to the studio and set it all up again. And we're usually the first ones to arrive on location, and where the janitors are usually trying to sweep up, and they're kicking us out because they want their floors, but we're still packing up. This is an early mobile production down at a park, I'm going to say probably Gyro Park, and they're recording actually a puppet show. Perhaps this is Kitty's Day. I'm not sure, one of the earlier mobiles. These big black and white cameras and the production switcher, which basically just chooses one camera or the other. The production switcher was large, heavy, and metal, and it was like the size of a stove like you'd have in your kitchen. And we got the system. David Suzuki used to, of course, people have heard of David Suzuki. Well, before he was with CBC, he was with UBC, and he used this production equipment to make his shows there. And so when he got rid of that and moved on to CBC, we snagged it, and that became our mobile production system. So we were in the cable industry. We were one of the first ones to really be mobile. And the only reason big, heavy equipment is mobile is because some idiot put a handle on it, or wheels under it or something. But anyway, we could make it move, make shows happen. So being on location is really quite exciting when it comes to the productions. There's all kinds of people that you meet. In this case, looking at my note, this is at the West Bank Country Opry with Miss Washington State Rodeo. Lots of celebrities you meet when you're a TV camera person. In this case, we are here at True Grains Bakery in Summerland, with camera on shoulder, and then Diana Sterling is our volunteer host, and she's being shown how to roll bread. And there's a little camera just on the table, one of those little GoPro cameras right there. So we use multiple cameras in different ways to make TV shows and then edit them all together. And the editing these days, thankfully, is computer edited. You've got a lot more, you don't have the oops factor, and you've got an undo button. Boy, I tell you, the undo button that's got to be the best thing. And some of our people we want to talk to don't stand still long enough, so we have to sometimes tape them to the wall. So this is actually at an event called Organized Chaos at McDougall Park School. So here's this young man that was doing the interviews. You may have seen a picture before. This is one of the teachers, and they allowed the students to duct tape him to the wall. And it was part of an event where the kids were all involved in doing activities and things. So we made this little TV story. So in our workshop with the students, there were 3 keeners. So we said, okay, how about you're going to be the camera guy. You take the microphone, you do interviews, and you take the little GoPro camera and run around and get some other shots. And together they made this terrific video. So it was really quite creative what students can do. And this, if it was the right way around, is Gary again up in the bucket truck. We did a story on floating in the river channel. This is a housing ceremony for the new fire truck. So when a fire station gets a new truck, they have a housing ceremony, and the community gets together, and it's a big celebration. And the fire truck becomes part of their team, so it's a big thing. And no, they're not trying to save money on gas by pushing it in. This is one of our production mobiles, and take note the large number of wires and cables that happen that go between all the equipment and the truck. And so when our new volunteers come out, I always tell them the tangled cable story. And it's like when they're winding up cables, okay, you got to wind it up just so, and put some tape on it so it's nice and it won't get all tangled. And then I tell them why, because we were doing the BC Boys AA Basketball Championships in Penticton, came out on Saturday, do the event, and then we were coming back the next day to do the final. And we came out and we said, well, when we're packing things up, why don't we just disconnect them from the cameras, and then we'll carefully roll the cables back up, all of them, and place them carefully in the back of the truck. And then when we come the next day, we'll just be able to hook them up very easily. Well, we arrived on location the next night, opened the back doors of the truck, and we had spaghetti on the floor, on the ground with all the cables tangled, and spent most of our setup time trying to untangle the cables and almost missed the game. So, lesson to be learned. This is me pretending to run the audio board. I actually just sat in there just for this photo. But with this, the microphone board, each one of those slides, levers, or knobs does something. I don't know what. It controls the sound in a special way. And we have volunteers that very specifically want to learn sound recording, audio. So audio engineering, that's one of the volunteer positions. And here, you can even get involved in a community event. This is, any guesses as to what event this is? It takes place in Naramata, hosted by Craig Henderson. It is the Cherry Pit Spit Contest. In probably early July, I guess, June, July, Cherry Pit Spit. And so one year I got to participate in the media category. Rick Hansen talking to students at Columbia Elementary School. And here we're at the, I think this is the Fest of Ale. So we have multiple cameras set up. One here with a volunteer, another one over here, and over here. And then the wires go out to the truck. And where we're standing is behind where the people would be interviewed. So this is talking to people that are the brew people on location. So pretty much anything that goes on in the community is fair game for a television show. Here's one of the young ladies operating a camera. And being a volunteer and running a camera is actually fairly easy, and just about anyone could do it. So maybe give that a thought, especially if we're looking to consider recording some of the brown bag talks that happen here at the Library Museum Auditorium. The Warbirds is a World War II plane club that met often in Penticton, and we did a recording of that, and that's another one of those special brown bag talks that Gary might be giving if you twist his arm. Got some great footage of him in, what kind of plane was it? Harvard. A Harvard aircraft, very loud. But, and got lots of footage and how that happened and why it happened, and very interesting. The International Space Station, we were at Uplands Elementary School, and they were chosen as a school to participate with Chris Hadfield from the International Space Station live, doing a talk, and the kids would ask questions of Chris Hadfield, Canadian astronaut, and what's it like to be on a space station like that. So we've got a little clip from that production.
Remember, what we're doing here on board the International Space Station is an experiment. Sometimes we can never tell the results, whether they're positive or negative, until the experiment is over.
The mysteries of the space program were brought down to Earth recently and made public. In a cooperative experiment, amateur ham radio operators across the globe relayed communications from a Penticton school gymnasium to the International Space Station, where students at Uplands Elementary posed questions to Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield as he orbited the Earth.
Yes, I'm ready for the first question. Ready to talk to the students at Uplands and the other schools.
My name is Ryan. How long have you been a ham radio operator, and how did you get started? Over.
Ryan, I got my license 18 years ago, and it was in order to go to the space station Mir.
Local ham radio operator Brian Edge and former Space Center educator Patricia Tribe proposed the idea of a live chat with Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield aboard the International Space Station. The project was approved, and a large crowd of students and officials turned out to make history.
My name is Naomi. Do you sleep well on the space station? Over.
Naomi, imagine if you could relax every muscle in your body and never have to roll over and never have to hold your head up, where you could just relax and float off to sleep like magic. That's what it's like here. So I sleep very well on the space station. Thank you very much for the questions. That was really great and nice to talk with you. And best of luck to everybody from up here in space at the International Space Station. Bye-bye.
So that was truly history in the making, because Upland School being chosen for that project. Some of the sports we do, there's the Penticton V's. We broadcast the Penticton V's on and off for years. Back in the day, we would roll up the ramp at the Memorial Arena and unload all that equipment. This is, I think this is David Healy, and beside him on the right is Scott Carter. And Scott Carter cut his teeth on announcing with us on Cable 11, and his first broadcast honestly wasn't that good, but he said, well, how am I doing? I said, it'll be terrific, keep going, you're good. So anyway, he went on to be a terrific sportscaster and helped organize the BC Hockey Hall of Fame that's at the South Okanagan Event Center. So baseball, there's a story with that one. One time we were doing a baseball game, and Deneen was the lady's name, and she was on the first base camera. And it's really hard to do baseball with only 3 cameras. You should have like 5 or more, because the ball's going this way and the runners are going that way, and it's really hard to follow, especially if you don't really follow the game so much. But anyway, Deneen, and all of a sudden, boom, she got hit in the forehead with a foul ball. And it would hurt a bit, but she wasn't really injured, which is good. Thankfully, it didn't hit the lens of the camera, or it would have done some real damage. This is high school basketball at Penn High. We do lots of basketball. It's an easy one to record. This is the BC Winter Games in Prince George. So our crew is, some of our crew is standing on top of the white truck on the far left-hand side. I'm the one that's sort of hiding in the back there. So that would be 1981. And then the following year, 1982, we went to Trail. So in Trail, again, what it was is, in this case, the Penticton TV mobile is the one on the right. We had from Prince George in the front there. And in the back was Trail Nelson Castlegar mobile. This is the bread truck, we call it, from Kelowna, was their mobile. And so we'd all get together and say, okay, well, you guys are doing, basketball, volleyball, and you guys do archery, and go over there and do that. And we'd have like hours and hours of all this local programming, and we'd share the videos around. And when we were in Trail, we did, the one we specialized in that year was alpine skiing. So here's the crew on the top of the truck. So this is yours truly on the top there, and let's see, we've got Michael Lloyd. So Michael Lloyd, Tony Lloyd's son. We've got Mike Dacre is here, and also Gary McDougall. Of course, there's at least 1 or 2 McDougalls in every mobile production. So we go to Trail for the weekend and set up camp. We'd set up the mobile with a camera on the bottom of, this is Red Mountain in Rossland, and have up at the top of the mountain. You can't run a camera cable like all the way up because it would trip somebody, but you had instead a camera and a power generator to generate electricity for it, and a transmitter and a big antenna, and we would beam the signal down the hill to the TV truck, and then it would be mixed in with the other cameras. So we would record alpine skiing, which is very stop and start kind of an action, and edit that into a show. And then how it would be distributed, we would send the videos out we'd play them in Penticton, we'd send them out to Kelowna, Kelowna would send it to Vernon, Vernon would send it on to Kamloops, and then over to Castlegar, and so it kind of made its circuit around the BC interior. And we made the mistake of not running skiing at first. We sent it off straight away. By the time alpine skiing came around, it was May, and it was sunny and warm, and nobody cared about skiing anymore. It was way late in the season. This is at Ironman Canada, and I believe this is probably Doug Brown on the back of a motorcycle. On the right here, it's a little dark, but this is a man sitting backwards on the back of a motorcycle with a camera on his shoulder. So very challenging. That's a job I never did. It takes a lot of really good balance, but we got some great shots, and we include that in our coverage of the Ironman. So Ironman would be broadcast live for hours and hours on the day of the race. Anyone ever watched TV with Ironman? Sometimes people they'd be a volunteer, or they knew someone who was volunteering, and they would watch the show and kind of keep tabs on the event and the people they knew in the race. This is another production that we did locally. This is roller derby. So this monitor wall would show some of the different cameras. So this would be camera 1. This looks like camera 2's image, and camera 3. And they would be mixed together with a couple of announcers who would talk about roller derby. So pretty much anything that moves, you can put it on TV. And the volunteers. Volunteers are a mainstay with any production on a community channel. This is, recognize this man? This is Richard Armstrong. He's a knowledge keeper with the Penticton Indian Band. And he was one of our very first volunteers back in the early 70s because he had his own video equipment. And I tell you, if anyone had their own TV equipment, we knew who they were, and they were connected to us, and they became great allies. So we've worked with Richard for many years on many different kinds of productions. This is Nico Theodosakis from Theo's Restaurant. Nico here on the left with one of our video cameras. And I'm not sure who the other gentleman is, but back in the day, another camera operator. This is Louis Lindley. The TV cameras change year to year. This is a volunteer picnic we did, and in 1984. So we would have, notice here, there are seniors, there's kids, all ages, all walks of life. Pretty much anyone can be get involved and be a volunteer TV producer. Here's some students from Princess Margaret Secondary School learning television production. They're here in their classroom. What they do is the morning announcements. It's not the principal, ding, ding, ding. This is your principal speaking. Please listen to the announcements. What they do is they have the kids do it. So that way the kids hopefully will listen. And in every room in the every classroom, they have a television set. So the TV would come on at 10 o'clock, and there's the announcements. So here they are recording them. And we would have the two students here reading the announcements of the day, and one guy with a video camera, and there's a light up here, and the next image will show some other of the production crew. This boy is holding up a big reflector card, the kind of reflector board that you can buy from the lighting supply store for $300, or for only $19.95, you can go to Canadian Tire and get a package of 2. And it's the reflective screens that you use in your windshield to keep the sun out. They work really great for reflectors for light. And the green screen behind the boys there, you can project the different image on. So they had different things happening. This is at a volleyball game, a couple of student announcers and a camera operator, another operator, volleyball. And this young lady is learning audio. She's trying to figure out which knob does which. And I think finally she gets it, judging by her smile. So this is Mackenzie, and she's graduated from high school now. She wants to be an audio engineer. So whenever we had a production that had an audio engineer kind of a person, that's the job that she really wanted to do. So someone that's going into a career in some sort of technology base, there's some opportunity to learn here for free. Another girl, this is at the Shatford Center during, I think, a mental health forum. And a young boy, this is, we did a unit of study at the Penticton Christian School, and this is at a chili cook-off event that happened recently. And part of it was a chili eating contest. So these people on the stage are eating red hot chili peppers. This is Amberly Erdman, and she runs the Yes Youth program, and she's wearing her dad's lederhosen because we are at the multicultural event, the One World Festival that happened recently, and the boy beside her is Eric Moore. He's one of our students. He's in grade 11 this year, and he's really good with that. It was his first time operating handheld camera, and I looked at the footage, he did really well. So this is our edit suite back in our humble Penticton studio, the comfy chair. If you're going to be sitting editing for any length of time, we have the world's most comfortable chair, and there's like coffee, and you can have a cinnamon mocha latte if you like. We don't always promise donuts like they do here at the museum, but we invite you to come and try to be give it a shot. Try your hand at volunteering to be involved in television production. This is a multi-screen display of Vernon Tattoo, the Vernon Military Tattoo, a very colorful event. Fundraisers are another important aspect of what we do, help the community. And the thing is, most community groups that are fundraising don't have a lot of money to spend on advertising, and everything we do at Channel 11 is completely free. So Shaw TV is a public service, and this is yours truly in the foreground here, just kind of observing the OSNS Child Development Center telethon. So that telethon's been running since 1981 was the first year. So this was sometime in the 1980s. And again, in the control room at the Cleveland Theater, I don't know if anyone's behind where all the seats are, there are different control rooms up there. Well, again, we discombobulate the studio and bring every rack of equipment, unpatch it, haul it in the truck, strap it to the wall, drive down there, unload it, hook it all up, you know, hours and hours and hours before the show. Sometimes, usually with a big production like this, it would be the day before the show. Lots of volunteers to help run the telethon. The Rube Band is performing at the telethon. We did it a number of years in a row at the Cleveland Theater, hoping to draw audiences, but that didn't really seem to happen so much, so we moved the location. This is Jonathan Kraft. So Len Kraft is a mechanic in town, and his dad, Jonathan Kraft, he had Kraft Cycle, and he would race motorbikes down at Queen's Park. I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember that, but he got a video camera of his own. He went out there and he would record all kinds of things, and he wanted his own show. So it was Jonathan Kraft Presents. And he would just show up with a tape, and we'd put it on TV, and it was his adventures and the people he met and interviewed, very interesting. Here's a crew at the telethon, mostly from that Princess Margaret Secondary High School. And this is survivorship dragon boating with the lovely Miss Donna right here. If you recognize Donna in the front row, it's my lovely wife. This was during a try dragon boating, give it a try kind of day. So a lot of the shows we do they could be fundraising, they could be the arts, they could be entertainment. In this case, it was Mary Poppins is the production that the school is putting on. And we don't do the whole show, we only do promotional bits because of copyright. So we don't have the rights to Mary Poppins, but we can do a short little promotional thing that helps the community group sell tickets. This is the let's see, what's the name of it? The Penticton, the Okanagan Fruit Tree Project, where people can donate their trees, the fruit from the trees rather. The Fresh BC Talent Quest, and Food for Fun is where the local landing amusement park gives, this is the fun run, and they donate time for the kids to play at the park when they bring food down for the food bank. The Okanagan Beard Festival. 10,000 Tonight is a food gathering project that the school students do at the high school. And in this case, the students have put together a video for mental health. So mental health for youth is a real concern, and so they worked together to put up a little short public service announcement on mental health that we videoed with them. And this young lady, this is Shannon Ford, an artist. She does portraits of horses. She doesn't just paint them, she does a portrait. She gets to know the horse, and you may have seen some of her colorful horses. Well, we did a story of her doing the painting, and then her opening of the exhibit at the Lloyd Gallery, which included a live horse coming in to the gallery. And so we did that as a video, and she said, we're going down to the Equus Film Festival in New York City. We should enter the story. I said, okay, sure, why not? Why not? Well, we won. There's an international film festival, and we won. And the team from England had sent their crew over because they thought for sure they were going to win, but we won, so there you go. Yep, very nice lady. Lots of local talent here. This is the cardboard boat race. Has anyone raced in a cardboard boat race? You got to at least go and see it. We'll play a little clip of it here.
One summer day in Naramata, kids got together, found some cardboard and duct tape, and got creative.
Pony Express. It's in honor of Heck or High Water, which is in Calgary. There's a lot of flooding there, so we thought we'd do a tribute to them. Yeah, we're from Calgary, so.
Yeah, well, I went dumpster diving along with most of the people for the cardboard. Was lucky enough to find a 10-foot piece, so it's actually only 3 pieces of cardboard and 3 rolls of duct tape, so quite a minimal construction, I think.
Very frugal of you for the Flying Scotsman.
That's the way we like to live our lives.
The next thing you know, there was a fleet of cardboard boats heading for the shores of Okanagan Lake. With all these beautiful boats, a local pioneer was called upon to judge the style and decor of these entries.
What am I looking for when I'm judging? I'm looking for
Meanwhile, Admiral Linton tells the competitors the rules of the race to sail or paddle way out there and back in one piece, a challenge for such flimsy watercraft.
Oh, I think so, yes. Cardboard boats aren't renowned for their buoyancy and longevity, so I'm hoping it's going to be an interesting race, because it'll be a bit boring if nothing sinks. So.
Seaworthy, well, let's see. It will float very well, briefly at least.
With that level of confidence, how can you lose?
Exactly. We're all winners.
I see that it's called, Rainbow Titanic. Is that maybe foreshadowing the award you might pick up on this?
Yes.
Survivors are eligible for trophies, including the coveted cardboard cup. A nervous excitement spreads among the competitors at the start line. Rumors that pirates may dash any hope of an honest win. And true to the pirate's code, making his own rules and poised to steal victory, Captain Hook stands ready with a bucket of water cannonballs. Arr! The race quickly sank into madness and mayhem, and just like any good comedy, everyone falls in the water.
So this event was it was made for TV. You just show up with a camera and a microphone and talk to people and get lots of images and then put something together, and of course it had to have a comic spin. This one is our last video just before we close, and this is Jail and Bail. So it's a fundraiser for cancer and a local family with cancer, and with using the crime prevention officer, who is sort of a natural comic. So we played right into it. Here's the Jail and Bail story.
The streets of Penticton are generally safe, but you never know what could happen at any moment. We have a warrant for a lady here. Looks like she's been up to no good. Definitely need to curtail a little bit of that, so we'll see if we could scoop her up. Unit 303. I think we passed it. Let's just circle the block. Looking for Unit 303. It's always important to check your surroundings when you're facilitating an arrest. Look in for any dangers. Are there stairs? Guess it's the elevator. I have a warrant for Debbie Scarborough. Ma'am, you're under arrest. I have a warrant for excessive awesomeness.
Oh my.
This is Debbie Scarborough. There's a warrant out for arrest for excessive awesomeness. Oh, we have an excessive number of warrants, stacks of them that we're trying to execute. We've been doing pretty good. We're targeting people at their places of business. It seems that a lot of people are calling our tips line to let us know when they're in. And we brought them down to this jail.
This is our new downtown jail. We just built it today. It has a white picket fence. All the furniture is donated by Gerard, so they're quite comfortable. And Starbucks is making sure that they're refreshed. And then so they don't get bored, there's entertainment as well. We have all kinds of characters here.
Our judiciary justice of the peace has set a certain amount of bail for each of these offenders.
Thank you. Okay, how much would you like to pledge me?
We have offenses ranging from transporting invasive species for some RDOS clientele. And it turns out when their bail is made, we have half of the money going towards a cancer society, and the other half of the money is going to Mila. She's a local 6-year-old girl. She's battling a rare form of cancer. So it's all in a good cause, it's good fun, and for the most part, our prisoners have been cooperative. And it seems that a lot of them have either made bail or we have some holes in the bars because the numbers seem to be dropping on the amount of prisoners we have here in jail. You never know what's going to happen day to day.
So there you have it. And the volunteers marched off into the sunset. Thank you very much. Not very far. I thought being a bagpiper, and with all the experience I've had with hot air at city council meetings I've attended over the years, I thought for sure I'd win. Questions? So for our volunteer program is always open. We take people that are young, old, and in between, and teach you from the ground up. It's local, it's fun, it's learning, and that's just a little bit of behind the scenes of, well, I guess maybe perhaps more of the interesting things in terms of history of Penticton. We didn't have a lot of historic footage, but some of the more fun. There's always good news out there. There's lots of really good things happening in the community. So that's what we like to focus on.
Thank you very much, Wayne. I was thinking, I've lived in a lot of different locations, and every time I've moved, I always check the community channel because it gives you a sense of the community. And I think that your presentation here gives us a sense of who makes up Penticton and what's important to Penticton. So thank you very much.
Thank you.